All right. Hi, everybody. This is Laura from Team DC. I am here with the newest partner of Team DC for our Pride Night Out series, Old Glory DC. They're the area's new Major League Rugby club. For Team DC's Pride Week, we are excited to be able to bring you a conversation between Old Glory and some representatives of 4 area rugby clubs that are members of Team DC. We're excited to have Andrea Cory here to lead the conversation. Andrea is a former member, player, and coach of the DC Furies. She is a lifetime Fury. She was honored with that from her club in recognition of her many years of service. She is a former women's rugby national team player and also the former commissioner of the WPL. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dre.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Laura, for that introduction. And I just want to say thanks to Team DC for hosting this interactive panel with Washington, DC's own pro rugby team, Old Glory. We are super excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much. So this is being held during Pride Month to really highlight the importance of inclusivity in all sports, specifically rugby. And I really feel like that the importance of sport in a young person's life cannot be overstated. Among other things, like sports provides community, friendship, competition. Some of my most favorite experiences and times is when I've been with my rugby club. So it's extremely important that we have sports, and specifically with the LGBT community. And so I feel like highlighting and celebrating teams that promote being exclusive in all areas, and in particular the LGBT community, that's really important, especially in this climate of politics now, as well as in June when we celebrate Pride. So I'm really excited that we're doing this, so thanks so much, Team DC. And I also want to thank Old Glory for continuing to be a part of this Pride celebration. And also thanks to all of the local teams who are here on this panel for participating and engaging in questions with Team DC and Old Glory. So how this is going to work is I'm going to introduce our guest speakers from Old Glory. Then I'm going to allow each of the panelists from our local men's and women's rugby clubs to introduce themselves and say just a little bit about their teams. And then I'm going to kick off the question and answer portion of this with a couple of questions for the Old Glory representatives. And then I'm going to provide time for the Furies, the Revolution, the Renegades, and the Scandals then to ask their questions. So that's how this is going to work. So we are first honored to have the Old Glory owners participating with us, Paul Shee and Chris Dunleavy. They are lifelong DC natives and rugby players. So just briefly, Chris is the Old Glory chairman. He is the president and co-founder of Brailsford and Dunleavy, and that is a 25-year practice management firm. So in this role, Chris specializes in management of the anchors of the community, such as pre-K through 12 schools, major sports events, and higher education quality of life project. And those things include recreation, athletic facilities, campus unions, and student and staff housing. He's also the founder and owner of Centers LLC, and that's the nation's first outsourced management company for campus recreational sports facilities. Now, turning to rugby, since the late 80s, Chris has played rugby with the Washington Irish and the Wild Geese Old Boys Club, and he continues to play for both today. Welcome, Chris. Paul Shee is the co-owner and director of used operations for Shee Auto Stores. She has 29 dealerships within the Mid-Atlantic area. They are a second-generation family-owned company. They celebrate over 50 years of business. If you've been in this area for any amount of time, you definitely know G Auto Stores. He received his business degree from Fairfield University, and in 2016, he was inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame. Under Paul's leadership, She Auto Stores believes in being part of the fabric of the communities in which they do business. And they also give back to those communities annually. And in fact, in 2018, they contributed over $30,000 to the American Heart Association as part of their annual sales event. And that's called It's Easy at Sheehy. Turning to Paul's rugby career, he played for the Washington Rugby Club from 85 to 93. He represented the United States in both 15s and 7s, and he says that his highlight is his participation in the 91 Rugby World Cup, where he received his first cap against the All Blacks, and his second cap against England 7 days later. He also played a season for Manly Rugby Union Football Club, and that's in Australia. That was in 92. Paul was also the head coach of the local DMV United Sevens team. They were three-time CRC high school champions. Paul sits on the board at Gonzaga High School and Washington Youth Rugby. He supports many of the local teams in the area. And one of the most special things that I saw in his bio is that he's the founder of Georgetown Visitation Rugby Program, and that's at his daughter's high school. So that's amazing. Both Chris and Paul are super involved in the DC rugby community. So welcome, Paul and Chris. So I just wanted to note that when I read both Chris and Paul's bio, it really made sense to me. One of Old Glory's, as I was sort of looking through Old Glory, and I'm a season ticket holder of Old Glory. So I'm very committed to Old Glory. But one of the biggest things is that they really want to grow the sport of rugby through this community engagement and participating in discussions like these. And I've seen Old Glory in youth events and other community events. It's really pioneering, I think, in the field of rugby. And in the last 2 years, Old Glory has participated with Team DC in celebrating Pride Month. So we appreciate Old Glory's accessibility to the community. So now turning to our distinguished players, Jameson, Fanana, and Threaten Palmo. Jameson is an 8-man and flanker. He was originally from Brisbane, Australia. Jameson joined Old Glory for the 2020 season. While attending the University of Queensland, the experienced Lock and 8, he was invited to attend the prestigious International Rugby Academy in New Zealand. And while I was there, Jameson joined Super Rugby's New South Wales Waratahs. That's where he started his professional career. He's also made multiple appearances for the U.S. national team. So thanks for joining us, Jameson. We also have Threaten. He plays center. He's from Woodland, California. While in high school, he played for Samoa's under-19s from 2005 to 2007. He also played sevens for Samoa, and that's incidentally where his father was born. From 2007 to 2008, he made 5 appearances for the USA under-20s. He was selected for the 2007 Rugby World Cup, which, very cool, this made him the youngest player to play in a Rugby World Cup, and that was at the age of 19. He also played in the 2015 Rugby World Cup. He has made 17 national team appearances since then. He has started 13 times. Again, thanks for joining us, gentlemen. We appreciate it. So right now, I am going to stop with my introductions, and I'm going to pivot to our panelists. So what I would like for you guys to do, they are eagerly awaiting their opportunity to ask you guys some questions. But real quick, I just would like for each of them to introduce themselves and just say something real brief about their team. So I'm going to start with Sam from the Washington, D.C. Women's Football Rugby Club, also known as the Furies. Sam?
Hey, thanks, Dre. Yeah, my name's Sam. I am the Vice President of PR with the DC Furies. We are, I want to say, the oldest rugby club, definitely in the East, if not the country. We just celebrated 40 years when I came to DC about 2 years ago. So if we're counting this year, we're about 42 now and going strong. We just had to postpone our 40th Rugger Fest, unfortunately. So we're hoping to have that in the near future.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sam. Okay, then I would like to hear from Caitlin from the DC Revolution.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Gibney. I am the Media and Marketing Chair for DC Revolution. We are a brand new D3 team in the area. We actually just started a year ago. We're really excited to be connecting with the community as part of Team DC. And inclusion is one of our core values. It's something that we really try to uphold in everything we do. So we're just really happy to be part of this conversation and to see what you guys have to say.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Caitlin. Ned, can we hear from you and the Renegades?
Certainly. Thank you very much. I'm Ned Keylock. I'm the president of the Washington Renegades RFC. We were founded in 1998 and we're the first men's club in the U.S. to actively recruit gay players. We're founding members of International Gay Rugby and members, of course, of Team DC. We, from very humble beginnings, we have grown over the years to the point we've had a lot of success on the pitch in recent years. 4 Division 4 regional championships and 3 Central Division championships at Division 3. And one of those led us to a trip to nationals back in 2014. So it's been a long road, but it's been an absolute joy.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ned. And finally, Rashad from the Scandals, Washington.
Hey, everyone. Thank you. My name is Rashad Demesmi. I'm from the Washington Scandals here in DC. We started in 2013. I got on the team in 2015, and I loved it ever since. It's definitely a big sense of community with our team and a showmanship of gay brotherhood. So most of the team mates that I have are actually gay, and we strive to the very best every day.
Excellent. Thanks, Rashad. Appreciate that. Okay, so I would like to get right into the discussion. So Threaten and Jameson, we would like to get to know you guys a little bit better. So can you each tell us when and how did you first get involved with rugby?
Yeah, I'll start off. Well, rugby is, coming from an islander family, Pacific nations. It's like one of the main sports, if not the national sport of the Pacific Islands. So from a young age, even from, from when I can remember, I was 4 years old when I was first touched the rugby ball. And from then on, I just fell in love with the sport, the values rugby holds, the inclusiveness, the social aspect of that as well. And just seeing everyone smile around the field is, the most important thing is enjoying what you're doing. And that's what I love doing. And that's what I love about rugby.
I got into the sport pretty early. My father and both my brothers played. I was just kind of a water boy. I didn't really know what was going on at first, but I think just the more time went, I started to learn the rules. I was definitely that kid in elementary school who tried to recruit everybody from football and basketball and baseball and try to start a team. Back then, there was no youth rugby at all. But yeah, I think just seeing what the sport does, how it brings people together, I thought that was pretty special growing up as I observed the game. That's definitely what got me into the game at first. And then I learned to love the game and its skill sets as I got older.
Excellent, cool. So if you could give any advice, so you kind of talked about sort of why you guys got into it. If you had any advice for young players about if they have aspirations of playing pro or getting to their respective national teams, what do you think you would tell them?
Well, I think the first thing is, rugby, especially, you don't even have to be professional, but it takes you around the world. And you get to learn about different cultures, different people, and the most important is the food. You get to try different foods around the world. So, rugby takes you around the whole world, and that's the most important thing about the rugby aspect, is that everyone in the world has either seen or heard about rugby, and that's what's cool about it, is that no matter where you're from or whatever little country is around, they've seen a rugby ball. They're like, oh, is it football with no pads or something like that? You know, it's funny. Right. Everyone compares it to that, but that's the cool thing about rugby, I think.
Very cool.
For me,
Trenton?
If I were to help out, or if I were to give any advice, it'd probably be more of just self-confidence. There's so much that plays onto that. Everyone has their limits. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. And I think a lot of people start to have self-doubt because they focus too much on their weaknesses. But I've played professionally. I've seen guys that are unreal, like how most athletic people I've ever come across. I've just seen the most average person beat them out in positions just because they were more professional approaching the way they played the game. But just seeing how anybody can play this game, you just have to believe in yourself, believe in your strengths, back yourself, and just consistently do it day in, day out. You can get there.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you. So Paul and Chris, I just want to turn to you and just talk a little bit about Old Glory's involvement in the community. We were kind of highlighting that initially, and specifically with Team DC around Pride Month. And you guys have teamed with Team DC for the last 2 years. Why do you guys think it's important for Old Glory to connect with the community during Pride Month?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll start. Maybe Paul can join in. Paul and I got involved with this not because we particularly wanted to own a professional sports team, but because we wanted to promote rugby as a sport, and we believe in its values and its culture. And one of the core elements of that is inclusivity, and with regard to gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, race, all ways of looking at humanity. Everybody, there's a spot on the rugby pitch and in the stands for everybody. And we believe you have to be proactive about that and promote those ideals for them to really succeed in being realized by everybody. So I'd say that in a nutshell is why we have found ourselves working with organizations like Team DC, which does a fantastic job of highlighting the visibility of LGBTQ and inclusiveness issues within the region, and bringing unity to the community through sports and participation in all the great sports that are part of the DC fabric.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, when we were developing Old Glory, we wanted something that the community could rally around. And the rugby community is just an incredibly diverse and wonderful community. And we feel that if the rest of the public could see more of the sport of rugby and all of the values that it brings, the world would be a better place. So I know that's how I felt. I've got all of my children playing it, including my daughter, as you mentioned. And I just think it's all the values that it teaches them and the camaraderie. They're your best friends for life, or your rugby mates. And that's really what we try to focus on. It's been wonderful having the community, what we've seen, the DC community, really come together around this.
Excellent. Great. Okay, so I don't want to monopolize all of the questions, so I'm going to have the team reps ask some questions. So we're going to sort of ask one question from each team, and then we'll go back around again, and you guys can ask another follow-up question if you like. So Sam from the Furies, can you kick us off?
Yeah, of course. So one of the questions we had is, who is your favorite coach and why were they your favorite coach?
I'll go first.
Okay, go on.
I think my favorite coach was my dad. One, because he let me play. I got to play in all the games. But two, I think it kind of goes back on my original question, was just obviously your parents are there to support you and give you that confidence that you need. And no matter how crazy I thought my moves were or whatever, he definitely supported it. Like nothing I had done was wrong. And he gave me that alley of creativeness and just believing in yourself and just going 100% on what you do. Yeah, that's probably a cop out, but that is my favorite. That's my favorite.
Fantastic.
Oh, you stole mine. No, so mine's quite similar, but it was actually my mum. So the first time I learned how to tackle was through my mum. I didn't do the dishes, and she tackled me in the kitchen. So I'm joking, but no. My mum has helped me a lot throughout my game. You know, she's taught me not only skill sets, but, you know, life skills off the field, which is the most important part. You know, rugby isn't all about just how big you are, or how strong you are on the field. You know, it goes to show how much you are as a person off the field, you know, with either the community or coaches or your friends and families. And that's the big thing about that rugby upholds, and the values of that is family, friendships, and, you know, inclusivity. So I think, you know, I gotta thank my mum for where I am today. You know, same with Threaden, you know, come from a big island families, you know, mums always hold it down, you know, so she always holds a special part, you know, in our lives and where we are today.
Excellent, excellent. That's so great that it's a family sport. Okay, so I'm going to turn now. Caitlin from the Revolution, do you want to ask your questions?
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned before, one of our team's core values is inclusion, which applies not just to our queer players, but also to all trans players who want to play with us. And we just touched on Old Glory's connection to the LGBT community, why that's important to you guys, but we'd love to go a bit deeper into why you think it's important for rugby to set a standard of inclusion.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll start there again. I find rugby is unique within the spectrum of sports in the United States, in that it has the opportunity, it has this tradition and strength of culture behind it that carries a lot of weight with people's perceptions, but it isn't bound up in what everybody already knows about American sports and sort of a lot of the stereotypes of what sports are about. So we've got an opportunity to advance social and even political thinking in a way that other sports aren't free to do. We're free to do it right now, and we are who we are because of our inclusiveness and because of the fact that there have been organizations, including, by the way, the Renegades and the Furies, who for years have been doing hard work to achieve the situation of inclusiveness that we have in the culture today. I think we need to recognize that it is not long ago that we could not say rugby was as inclusive as we can today. It was not always as inclusive of women as it is today. Certainly it had issues of rampant homophobia and other problems within the men's game relatively recently. But we have this unique, wonderful culture that we know because we're in it. We all feel connected to each other because of the respect we develop for everybody who steps on the pitch and fights their way through 80 minutes of what rugby is, that we can embrace that inclusiveness. And I think we've got an opportunity to be a national leader, and therefore we have an obligation to be a national leader.
Yeah, if I could just add, our emblem is Old Glory and our logo, and it, we want every American to participate in the sport of rugby, and that's why when we identified our logo, we really felt strongly about inclusivity and why wouldn't you do that? And it's just part of a foundation of who we are. I grew up with a gay uncle, and in the late 60s and early 70s, and he had to deal with a lot of prejudice, and grew up on 8th Street, and our rugby team actually spent a lot of time around there. So I certainly want to see every possibility that we can to open up doors and include everybody, because it's just such a wonderful sport, and that's what's so unique about it. And And I think it can be life-changing. So, I mean, you know, we're excited about helping any way we can.
Excellent. Jameson, Threaten, any comments on why it's important for the team in rugby to be inclusive?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's huge. I think we all understand that rugby is a melting pot of cultures. And as far as professionals, we not only learn the game when we're out traveling overseas, but we're learning about other people. We get new friendships, we understand new ways of life. And I mean, who are we to say, you know, no one else can play this game unless you actually bring them in, understand their cultures, understand everyone else's ways of living. So I don't see why we couldn't.
Yeah. It's just when we first begin playing rugby, you know, you're given like a code of conduct to go by. But I think the one thing when I was a kid growing up, the one thing that stood out was this quote that my old coach used to tell me was, "Fear none, respect all." You know, it goes to show with the rugby and in life as well that you would fear no one on the pitch, but off the field you respect them no matter where we are. Like even now, you would tackle and smash somebody on the field for 80 minutes, but after the game you would have a beer with them. You know, so that's funny how rugby works that way. You know, you're paid to smash somebody else, but can still enjoy each other's time after the game. That's a really cool thing about rugby, and I don't think other sports like do that kind of style and don't have that kind of culture, which I think rugby is very special in this world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Ruggers are uniquely situated, I think, for that kind of inclusion because exactly, Jameson, what you're talking about, we can play rugby and then have a beer with each other afterwards. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Let's turn to Ned from the Renegades.
Thank you. I was just going to ask for either Threaten or Jameson or both. How has your experience in DC here been different to what you expected, or has it been what you expected? Obviously, the not playing right now wasn't what you were expecting, but.
I think I knew DC had a pretty good following in rugby. But what I thought was really special was when we went and played those games, our home games, the amount of teams that came in their own colors and showed the sport. I thought that was awesome. I thought that was amazing. I thought everybody showed like what DC is all about, because a lot of other teams right now are struggling with their clubs. Some people just have their own pride and they don't want to help. They don't want to participate. But I think that also speaks volumes with our front office as well, how they've been able to include so many different people, and you just kind of see how that love comes back to our games, because this is coming from us. When we play other teams, they're shocked. No one can believe the amount of like our fan base, how strong it is, and the people that come to the games and how loud we are. The Seattle group was telling me they now know what it's like to play against people in Seattle because our fan base matches the same kind of level of intensity. So yeah, that caught me off guard, which was really awesome.
Yeah, it also comes down to, you know, when Old Glory was first made or founded, you know, they wanted to make it like to bring a team in that not were only good at rugby, but had the values that, you know, that represented the emblem well. And that's why Andrew and the owners, Chris and Paul, you know, as well as John Manson from Scotland Rugby, they've brought in special players to represent the city of DC and, you know, the country of United States of America. And it just goes to show everyone in the team, like there wasn't any conflicts of interest or any battles between each other. We all understood where we came from. We had people from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, from Samoa, you know, little islands. And, you know, it's cool when they all come together into a team and you're going onto that field and there's everyone from a different country, different backgrounds, you know, and seeing the end results after the 80 minutes, you know, it just goes to show. And the community loved it, and we could tell that. And that's what we're doing it for as well, is, you know, for the people, not just for us. We want to help out everywhere we can. So, you know, thank you for having us, DC.
And on behalf of the community of DC, we thank you guys, because it's been definitely an enjoyable experience. Okay, I'm going to turn it to Rashad from the Scandals.
Hey again, guys. So my question is, what qualities make a good teammate a good team captain?
Well, I'll take this question because he's our captain. Well, obviously it's not the looks because, you know.
Nice sense of humor too.
Leaning over.
No, I think the first one has to be respect. You know, we all know Freddie Palamo, you know, he's a legend in the USA rugby environment and, you know, world rugby. You know, he was one of the youngest ever in the world to represent a country in the World Cup. He's been to 3 World Cups. You know, he has long hair, so everyone recognizes that. But, you know, I think the 3 main values is definitely you have to respect. The respect has to be mutual between the captain himself and the players. It has to be mutual respect, not just one leader on the field. You know, he has to be able to listen to all voices throughout the team, which is what makes Old Glory so strong and has a great core of foundation. I think the second one has to have a sense of humor. You know, rugby isn't always a serious sport. You know, we have to have fun. You have to enjoy yourself. And if the captain, the leader on the field can't enjoy himself, then how are we meant to do that? So I think that's what Threadden holds. Threadden, Palamo, and Mungo Mason, which is our co-captain. And I think the third one has to be fearless. And I think that's what they both show on the field. And, you know, when we see our captain upholding that, you know, that the fearless attribute on the field, that's what makes us, you know, want to follow him. And I think that's the 3 main attributes a captain should uphold.
Excellent. Threaten, do you want to say anything about what you would think as a good captain?
Just be me, really. No, I think he's hit it on the nail. I mean, because I'm a co-captain, I can kind of see it from our other captain's side of view. Just because you're named captain doesn't mean you have to change the way you are. You were picked for those exact reasons for who you were. So you don't need to do extra. You don't need to do any more than what you are. That's why you are captain. If anything, what you do is you help bring the voice from the players to the staff and vice versa. You're almost a vessel, if anything. It's how I've taken it, and it's how I've seen Mungo do it. And Mungo's definitely very inspirational on the field. You definitely have to be someone who can back himself when they're talking. And when I see Mungo out there making all sorts of stats, tackling, contact, rucks, it's something I'd like to follow.
Okay, excellent, great.
Could I add one item there? You know, I read a book about a year ago called The Captain's Class, and it talked about the 6 traits that are important for a captain. And of course, you know, we've got 2 great examples, and they talk about Richie McCaw in the book. They actually went to rugby. They talked about a lot of different sports, but I think the key that we saw, and we were so proud of our team, was just how they led by example. And, you know, it was the first year for us. We had to figure a lot of things out. There are a lot of moving pieces, and some could have gotten frustrated a little bit because we were still trying to stand up a professional organization. And just from our point of view, you know, we had a coach and they were there most of the time. But when we saw what Threaten and Mungo were willing to do in the team and just lead, it just was so critical in the first year. And I think that we saw that on the field when they put together some of these electric tries that they did, and it was so exciting. So kudos to the captains that kind of led the way. It's so critical.
Excellent. That's great perspective, Paul. Thank you. So we have time for a few more questions. So I'm going to come back around. Sam, do you want to follow up with some questions?
Yeah, so as y'all are aware, it's definitely a trying time in our world. And athletes are uniquely positioned to have impact and direct impact on the situations going on. Our question is, do you think that professional athletes have a duty to weigh in on social situations?
I think before I can answer that, I think something that we all need to do, athletes and people included, is be more aware of what's going on, rather than there's so much stuff that's just being unfiltered that's just coming through at all sorts of outlets. Do your own homework. I know that's harder to do than, you know, we said, because so many different lies are out there. You have to do so much research to actually figure out what's going on. With that, then I think you should use your platform, you know, to express your opinion. Everyone's open to their own opinion, but before you make any opinion, I definitely think you know, do your homework on what you're doing. Because I've seen some people out there, I'm just like, seems like you just kind of read one side and you haven't really seen but from both sides. So that's my take on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as professional athletes, you know, it's our job isn't just to play and represent our team. It's also to represent who we stand for. And I think rugby stands for not just ourselves and our team, but it's everybody, for everyone from all walks across the world, you know, black, white, yellow, green, orange, you know, everybody. And that's what rugby players, I think, need to do, especially with those social media platforms. You know, it's just to spread awareness of equality, you know, in sports. And I think rugby does uphold that. You know, we have one of the most famous in rugby, a referee, Nigel Owens, who was openly gay, and he came out, I think about 5 years ago now, but he's one of the most well-known referees in the whole world. You know, and it's interesting to see, because after that, a lot of players, professional active players, have come out after that. So I think spreading the awareness of, you know, the equality in rugby and just the inclusiveness of rugby is the important part that us as athletes can do to help everyone be aware.
Excellent. I don't know if Chris, you or Paul want to say anything sort of about your players and their duty or anything to take a stand or say things about what's happening in politics or current events.
Yeah, I think, you know, on the one hand, as an organization, we don't want to be in the position of, you know, sort of urging our players to embrace one view or another, or one politic or another. That said, we definitely encourage and support them to use their voices. And I would say, you know, as the most obvious example in the recent unrest we've had around police brutality issues and the Black Lives Matter movement, we've had a number of players very vocal, and we have celebrated the messaging they've done online, and in fact adopted our own messaging around the issue. And we believe athletes should be supported in their right to use a voice, and we stand behind that without wanting to dictate what kind of politics they need to embrace.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I just add, you know, just thinking back, Colin Kaepernick. I mean, just the simple little protest he did, and the amount of vilification he took to do that, pretty remarkable. Looking at that now and seeing how right he was to do that. So we fully support efforts to do what's right, and you know, we're going to continue to do that and try and be respectful anytime we do something, but we need to have a voice, and athletes certainly should be able to do that.
Great. That's great that you encourage them to do that. So Caitlin, do you have some other questions?
Yes, so it was so fitting that Sam asked that question, because our next question was actually specifically about your support of Black Lives Matter on social media. But since we have already covered that, I'll go ahead to our next question, which is that we are very excited, of course, to see men's professional rugby growing in the US, and we're also hoping that a women's professional league would develop soon. So what do you think male professional athletes should do to promote women's sports, including supporting a future women's rugby league?
I'll just mention, so locally, the current US Sevens captain, Abby Gustadas, helped me start Georgetown Visitation. And what a wonderful coach and mentor, and she's doing an incredible job as captain of the US Sevens team. I think women's rugby is going to exceed men's rugby participation in the next couple of years. So it is and it's a huge advantage for our sport that we have well over 50% of the population that plays this contact sport. And by the way, the U.S. is one of the top teams in the world. So we've got a huge advantage there. And again, it makes good sense. The timing of that, we'd like to see it happen sooner rather than later. We're still trying to stand up our team, but I can certainly see a path and a future shortly where something like that happens, rightfully so.
Chris, do you want to say something or threaten? How about your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, as a player, how we could help out. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but from what my brother coaches a women's team and been doing it for a very long time with the Scandals Rugby. And whenever I can, I try and go out there and support the women's game because I think it's very important, especially if we want this game to grow. Like Paul had said, we need the other half of the human race to start playing this game, and increase them as well. So everyone can experience the sport that we all love to play. But as far as where I feel like my options are at the moment, I can only use my platform to teach kids in a fun way, not necessarily exactly how the game is played, but, introduce some kind of games where you can get those kids who've never even seen a rugby ball before, get them to laugh, hopefully get them a little more intrigued. And then I think what we need to do on our part is find more programs that we can help guide these kids, give them somewhat of a blueprint, like, oh, did you like this game? Well, if you hadn't noticed, there's a high school or there's an elementary school that's just down the road that has a club. And so I'd say maybe if we had more of a blueprint of all of our youth and we can start ground up. As far as me, I mean, I have no money to change this whole problem of myself, but I could try and help motivate and inspire younger kids, men, boys and girls, to fall in love with the game like I did.
Yeah, Dre, I think as an organization, Old Glory has a responsibility, and Major League Rugby has a responsibility as the newly appearing professional enterprise in our sport to promote the women's game as much as the men's. Our focus, it's funny, it seems so long ago now, but earlier this year, we had a very heavy focus on working with partners like the XV Foundation or the 15 Foundation that a couple of the U.S. Women's national team players founded in recognition of the fact that even in spite of all the troubles that USA Rugby is having organizationally as a whole, the women's game nationally was really suffering from underfunding and a real lack of opportunity. And the foundation was established to take matters into their own hands and begin privately fundraising for support of the women's national teams. And Paul and I and Old Glory worked in partnership with them, made a significant financial support. One of our games that we were able to actually hold was focused on International Women's Day and giving a voice to the XV Foundation in our community. And we think those kinds of efforts to promote the women's game are critical today. In answer to Caitlin's question, I would like to think a women's professional game in the U.S. Is on the horizon. It's hard for us to see that far down the road right now just because we're embroiled in the financial gamble that it is to get the professional game off the ground to begin with. But we believe that's the goal we all need to be working toward over time and really achieving the equity that we know is important, but we know we're so far away from today.
Exactly. And it was great to see during the Old Glory games and right before the men took the field that there were two different occasions in which there were women's games that were highlighted, the all-star teams, and then also there was a sevens tournament that was played that was primarily women, and that was fantastic as a former rugby player to see that. So that was really great, and we absolutely appreciate that. Ned, how about you?
Thank you. In addition to your engagement with Team DC, I know you're also involved with the Washington Wolfpack Mixed Abilities Rugby, which is great. I'm wondering, in what other ways are you reaching out to the broader community here in the DC area?
And just specifically in the DC area?
Well, more broadly, if you like. I was just thinking DC because, you know, it's DC,
Yeah.
but sure.
Well, one of our goals, obviously, we're located at Catholic University, and I work with Washington Youth Rugby, was really to expand the DC area and work with the public schools. Brian Mahalik runs a wonderful program, which we're still trying to support it the best way we can. When we brought in Tendai Mtarara, sometimes get his name wrong, the last name, you know, one of the goals was that he was going to work with the local community, and you know, he ended up attending a couple of practices, not enough, but we've seen just a wonderful growth. Pride High School was a great example. Years ago, I had a couple young men play for me with DMV United, and I think now they're coming around. Hopefully, they may have a chance to be on Old Glory, which is remarkable. So I think that's our goal, is to not necessarily take away from other sports, but just expand the opportunity for the sport of rugby within the DC community and outside the DC community. That's why we have Tim Brown in our youth development position to really help anywhere we can and have our players get out and participate too. So it was the first season and it was cut short, but that is part of our strategic mission long term. So Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
No, I think that was well said.
Excellent. All right, and Rashad from the Scandals.
Yep. One last question. What motivates you the most about your profession as being an athlete? What's your biggest motivator?
The motivator definitely has to be, you know, representing not only the emblem on your crest, on your chest, but also your family. You know, making them happy and watching them on the side, or from like a TV stream. You know, I always love getting the message after the game. You know, proud of you, son, or stuff like that. You know, from mum and dad. That's always a big eye opener, especially for me, a motivator for me during games. Is, you know, making them happy. You know, making them understand, you know, I'm traveling the world, helping support them, and, you know, giving them something fun to do on the weekend, you know, besides going out and just having a dinner dates with them too. So, you know, it's good to have them, you know, always in the back of your mind while you're playing rugby on that field, smashing other people. You know, the parents are always watching, so, you know, keep you on the good tracks.
Mine is just competition, really, just to compete. That keeps me motivated for the most part. Keeps me ticking. See if I still got it. See if I can still compete with guys that are getting younger and younger, as I'm getting older and older. And it's
40.
It's exciting now, because now you find new ways of how to manipulate a team, whether it's not just pure talent, just on your youth. This guy, but you can find different ways of how to play the game, and I think that's another reason why I like the game so much. There's so many different ways of playing this game. You just got to find a way that works for you and your team.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so it's coming up on the hour now. Anyone have any last, maybe one more question? Anyone burning want to ask?
Jordan's ready for one more.
Ready for one more. Anyone have anything? Caitlin, Sam, anything you guys want to ask? I know you had a third question, Sam.
Here's one for you. So as you age, how are you adapting? Because I am increasing in years and
Getting
lessening
younger,
my
yes.
rugby years left according to my body. So I think that that's a really good question, is how do you adapt? How do you change your style of play to play smarter and not necessarily kill your body?
I think that's exactly it. I think playing over the years, you start to see, you get repetitions of things that you see that become patterns, things that you start to understand. You can almost anticipate what the next phase is going to be. And so, say something's about to go on, I'll just let this young fella go hit that rep, so then I can go and get myself ready for the next phase, kind of thing, you know. So because I know that's not where I'm going to be the most efficient with my energy. I can't go there and then make my way back anymore. So I'm just gonna be like, here you go, buddy, go make that tackle or something, and I'll contribute on the next one or something like that. So yeah, I think it also at this level we have so much film. You're able to, it's no longer. I don't have to worry about that guy that I've never heard of that came out of Indiana or something, and then he's just got this wicked left step that I've never seen before and just beats me out of nowhere. We're prepared now because we got so much film, so much stats on everything. So. Definitely a lot more of a student athlete than I was just an athlete now. So, yeah.
Great. Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks to everyone for your great questions. Really, really thorough discussion. Thanks especially Paul and Chris for your leadership and also for getting pro rugby to this area so soon after MLR started. I mean, it's great to have a team in DC already. And of course, thanks to Team DC for this opportunity. And of course, all of the work that Team DC does in this community. And thanks to all of the local teams for participating. And Threaten and Jameson, thanks for sharing your day with us and your insights. And we look forward to an amazing 2021 season. And I encourage everyone listening to join me in getting season tickets and supporting Oh Glory.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of Team DC, I just want to say thank you. I'm already a season ticket holder as well, so you don't have to push me. But thanks to all of you for joining us. This has definitely meant a lot to everyone, and we really look forward to being able to celebrate Pride Night out with you next year.
Yes.
Thank you, Dre. Thank you, Laura,
Yay.
and everybody else. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Look forward
Thanks
to
for
it.
having us.
Good afternoon.
Bye.
You too. Thank you.
Laura?
Thank you.